But yes, thank you ever so much for joining. It does really mean a lot to us for our customers to be joining us and, being part of our webinars. It is a team effort, and we really do like helping our customers know a little bit more about the latest and greatest in Qlik. Today we're talking about hybrid data delivery, and I'll just bring up our agenda here for you. So it's just going to be a quick introduction. Some of you may be familiar with the format of what we do. I'll be taking you through some of the slides and talking you through some information about hybrid data delivery today. And then my colleague Alex will be doing the demonstration. So here are our faces. They'll be putting their cameras on as and when they are going to be doing their presenting essentially. This is also our contact details at the bottom as well if you need to get in touch with us after the webinar itself as well. So please do keep in touch with us. We are, more than happy to keep talking to you and providing you with as much value as we can, and sort of educational sort of resources as well when it comes to Qlik and their offering, because it's always changing and it's changing for the better. So we'll just get into the actual sort of information side of things now. I will go through my slide deck and then we will join Alex to do the demonstration. So you may have already seen this diagram already, but we thought it'd be really useful to talk you through it again. It's really nice to be able to present something to you visually, rather than some wording on the PowerPoint screen and then talk you through it as well. Today, we wanted to let you know that Qlik's first initial push to moving your on-prem data sources over into the cloud was via a tool called Qlik Data Transfer. So some of you may have already been aware of that and use it already, others not so much. But hybrid data delivery is definitely the new improved version, or for a better phrase, actually the new phase of data delivery being available in the cloud as well. Hybrid data delivery actually sits in the Qlik data integration arm of the business. So traditionally, Qlik's main arm of their business or main source of business was data visualization, so creating the reporting that you need from the data that you've connected to the system already at a very, very high level, that is. But now they want to be able to provide you with an end-to-end platform that you can manage your data sources from, and actually be able to produce your reporting and data visualization layer on top of the data that you have already as well. So this is a very simple illustration of what really happens. So you have multiple data sources that will go through your data integration arm of the elements of Qlik essentially, and then they will provide you with effectively more features within the data integration side of things. So things like replicate, so being able to actually replicate the data that you have and being analytics ready for you, compose as well, and then providing that cataloging service so you can actually choose what data sources you use from a sort of clean and user-friendly way to actually build your reports from it as well. It's all becoming cloud-based as well. So traditionally it would have been something that you would have had to install actual software for on-premise yourself or in the private cloud, but they are encouraging now, as with a lot of the conversations we're having with Qlik customers, that they are wanting to become a cloud-based provider as well. So it's all moving into the cloud, becoming a bit more modern and helping data become a lot more accessible for the cloud as well. So again, another simple illustration for you. Effectively, hybrid data delivery is bridging the gap between your on-premise data sources into the cloud. So we are bringing any data that you are using on-prem into the cloud, so it's ready for you to actually start creating your analytics from it. So it creates QVDs that are analytics ready, essentially. It helps you build your pipeline of data as well by replicating the data that you have into the cloud, again, making it accessible for you to use. It also helps you provide near real-time data as well. So you can use it continually as an organization But the clever thing about this is that it's always monitoring for any changes within the data source itself. So you can guarantee that you have the most up-to-date data ready to use when you need it. Essentially, what you're doing is you can actually access all of your data in the cloud in the hub. It makes it really easy for you to use Qlik within the platform. It's trying to make everything as easy as possible for you. You can select the data that you need and you want to use, ready for when you're ready to use it, and then profile that data, view samples of that data as well, and then actually create applications directly from it. So what Qlik are looking to do right now is actually make data easy for you, without having to use a lot of code and without overwhelming business users when it comes to actually creating applications for you. And that's something that you can see is a running theme throughout a lot of the webinars that we do. It's all about ease of use, ease of access. So Alex is actually going to join us now and do a demonstration of what hybrid data delivery looks like for you and how you can use it within the business as well.
Yeah, so the vision here is that we're moving on-prem data straight into Qlik's cloud, using the elements of the QDI platform. Here we're mostly going to be working in this interface from the Ometis. It's called the Enterprise Manager, which connects to Replicate in the background. So if any of you are familiar or can remember from that slide that Sharon showed you just a few minutes ago, that the QDI is broken into different products, which is Replicate, Compose, Catalog. We're only really looking at Compose and the management bit on top of that, which is Enterprise Manager today. So this is the only component I'm really going to look at today, which is on-prem. The rest is all going to be in the cloud and managed from there. So you'll see that as we go through. So here I have my console showing me the tasks I have set up. You can see I've got a few here, like when I was prepping this the other day to make sure it worked and so on, and some other tasks here which are taking on-prem data and synchronizing it somewhere. Some of this is synchronizing from an on-prem Postgres SQL database to a cloud-based one, and various permutations of that. And we're going to go through and set up a task, which will be the placeholder will be the configuration for distributing our data into the cloud. And in this scenario, we're actually wanting, let's pretend we're an organization, we have an on-prem Qlik environment and we have a cloud Qlik environment. We're wanting to analyze our on-prem usage of Qlik Sense by synchronizing some of the back-end data into the cloud, and we're going to do the analytics for that in the cloud. Okay, it's just a nice, easy database for us to work with and create some changes in. Okay, so I'm going to create a task in here from our QDI server, and this is going to be called HDD for Hybrid Data Delivery Webinar. Okay, and we're going to use this special area called Qlik Cloud Landing. If any of you have Replicate already, I think there might be some of you on the call, this option became available in, like, I think the May release Service Pack 2 or something like that. So you might not see that option at the moment, might need an upgrade to get this functionality. So we can select the Qlik Cloud Landing there. And this then becomes very like a normal Replicate task. I'm going to say what my source database is. In this case, it's our on-prem Qlik Sense repository database for this scenario. And I've already created this endpoint connection here. So these are as a target. I'll just quickly show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is where I configure my S3. Again, remember back to that slide that Sharon showed you. You've got your on-prem data. The first stage is to move it into some cloud storage. In this case, and the only supported one at the moment is S3. Future ones will come, obviously. We just set the bucket up and the access key and the target folder and so on. And that's all we need to do in here to set up a target. Okay, obviously there's permissions to set up and things like that, which I've done before this. You don't need to see me navigating through AWS permissions. Okay, so I've set my on-prem data source here, my Postgres, and I'm going to land that, as it's called, into my S3 area. Now, the next thing I need to do is select what data I want to synchronize across. I can do everything if I want. I'm not going to do that today, just to keep things simple. So there's a simple way of searching in here, percentages instead of stars for kind of wildcards. I can go in, and this connects to that source database on-prem. Says these are all the tables that match your search criteria, and I can either include them down here using this kind of double arrow, or I can include that like as a pattern, basically. So I'm going to include that as a pattern, and I'll show you another example. We're just going to go in and get users. So I'm just going to grab my users, and I can just add that one. So I've selected a pattern of tables, which if any new tables come in that match that pattern will come through, or I can select one table at a time. I don't select fields within them. That's not really what Replicate's about. It's about replicating the whole table, and it looks after all the data translations between these different things for us. And the next thing I need to do just before this is to say how often I want this to refresh. Now, Sharon said, and it's true, Replicate will be monitoring for changes the entire time. And it will be getting those ready to synchronize across. However, as part of storing to S3, we need to set a kind of a partitioning time, which basically means when it's going to close those files off. Okay, so this is effectively like our refresh time in this scenario. And the lowest we can go at the moment is 15 minutes. So we're going to do that. And now I need to make a guess as to how long it's going to be before I need to push a change through. So I'm going to set this to go at, let's say 20 past, and see if we get to that point by then. It's not a big problem if not. So every 15 minutes from 20 past, it will refresh, but we'll also do a full load to start with. Okay. So then all I need to do is save that. I'm not going to run it at the moment because that is all we need to do on-prem. So this is the part where you're connecting to on-prem data sources, hooking it up to the cloud. Obviously, I've already connected it to my cloud environment at a server level. I just have to enter a key and a URL for that. Again, not going to show you that unless you specifically want to see it. I can see a question has come up. Does Replicate support DB2? Yes, I believe so. So if I go into manage endpoint connections here, it has massive compatibility, particularly with legacy systems, actually. So if we come down here for sources in here, you can see various versions of DB2 occur in there, as well as plenty of obscure systems I've not really come across, but it does have very good support for that. There are some really good help pages on that around, because there are some specific requirements and limitations of each data source. But mostly, and what's really important if you've not come across Replicate before, is the vast majority of them don't require any special kind of, there's no agent to install on the source database. Okay, it does it all by logging in, using the log access, using certain permissions, using kind of replication options and so on. So it's very, very scalable, very light touch, very low load on the source server. And there's plenty of optimizations and stuff you can do around that as well if you want. So thanks for the question, Jonathan. So I've saved that now, and that's me. I'm going to move away from Replicate. I'm going to move into this new area in Qlik Sense SaaS. So this is, we're now on the Qlik Cloud. This is under the new area that you may well have noticed called Data Services. Okay, and you'll get this as part of your enterprise subscription. However, you will need to have the Replicate software in place for that all to hang together. So again, here's my stuff I set up the other day, but I'm going to kind of set one up from scratch. So the first thing we do is we need to link into that Replicate task we've created and kind of have an area here where we point it to the landing zone, as it were. So there's these kind of two phases we go through. So I'm going to create a data asset. I'm going to call it HDD webinar landing. Okay, so this is where we're telling it where to get the landing data from. Okay, and that immediately takes me into the edit window. And all I need to do really here is go through, select my server. So again, it's kind of bi-directional. But when I say that, there's no holes in any firewalls or anything here. That is just working. The on-prem needs to know about the cloud, and it does it that way. So there's no kind of like, we don't have to open up, a firewall to let Qlik Cloud into our internal environment. It's all done securely over HTTPS and regular synchronizations. So you can see the reason it's only showing one task here is because all the other tasks are either not for Qlik Cloud landing type, or they're already linked in the cloud. Okay, so it's kind of a one-to-one mapping here, and that's all we need to do really. at this stage. So we've told it about that, and we're saying save. This immediately triggers this window. It says you're cataloging the asset. This basically looks at what tables and fields and data types there are in there. At the moment, as it says here, you cannot change that structure. Again, it's a limitation for the time being. That will change going forwards. This is kind of version 1 of this. But for now, you need to make sure you've selected the tables you want in the first instance before you catalog it at this stage. So I'm going to catalog it. Doesn't take very long. Again, in fact, if I look across here, this task has now started. If I go to monitor, this is select all. Yep, so we've got some, it's only showing a couple of ones down there, even though we've got more than that going on. We can see we've got some completed ones, loading and queued that are going through, and it's just running that analysis. It's now stopping it again as it's done the analysis it needed to do. Now it's all showing as completed. Okay, this has said asset is successfully catalogued. I click run, and that starts the task again on-prem, and this time it's actually going to do the loading of data from our on-prem SQL database into our S3 structure. Okay, so if we just wait, this should run, and we should start to see some throughput going on, and we see all the tables. There's a little blob going down here, which is a representation of our data moving from on-prem into the cloud, into S3. So it shouldn't take too long to go through. And once it has done the full load, it will move into the second phase, which is called change processing, where it's monitoring the database for any changes as they go through. So, of course, when you do a live demo, it takes twice as long to do anything as it would have done otherwise. That is normally completed by now, but that's fine. I can leave that running in the background and go on to the next stage. Okay, so that's my landing task. It's failed with recoverable errors. Well, we'll see how it goes. It's now completed, I think. So I think we're all right. We'll see if we're all right or not, won't we, as we go through the joys. Okay, so we've got a landing area. Now we set up a storage area, which is what takes the data out of the S3 and puts it into Qlik Cloud as QVDs. Okay, so there's this two-stage process we're going through, and there's reasons for that to do with kind of the efficiency of some of the cloud storage providers and the formats of files and so on. Again, I expect the options to broaden out in that as we go forwards. So HTTP webinar storage this time. So I'm going to change that to the storage. As you can see, it says this is what you want if you want to create QVDs. I create that. And I'm going to get a few more options to configure here. I'm going to select my source data. I'm going to create this landing thing here. You can only select landing assets cataloged of type S3. Yep, that one. Select. Okay, it's the one we just created. Okay, and then I have a connection to that S3 bucket. It's just like any old normal data connection. It's filtered down to the S3 ones in here. So I'm saying this is where I want you to get the data from. Where do I want you to put it to? I can choose my own managed storage at this stage if I want to have my QVDs going somewhere else. I'm going to leave it as Qlik managed, and then I can select a folder I want them to go into within there. But I'm going to leave that as all the defaults. Now again, we get this cataloging process because it's two stages. It's all to do with kind of which bits are happening at what stage. So again, but we have the same limitation here that you can't change the metadata. So this is now looking at the S3 files and cataloging those and analyzing them. You can see in here, we can see what fields we got in all of the tables we're bringing through. You can see we've got the apps and the users table that I selected before. And now we can run it. First time we run this, 20 past already. I didn't get there in time for the changes. Never mind. I can show you that in another way probably. So that's now running, and so both of our components are now running, the landing area and the storage area. Okay, just to quickly show you that, I will go into the storage area. Okay, no, I won't. In fact, that's the easiest way. If I come in here, come to my hybrid data delivery and have a look at the data files. You can see here, this is the webinar storage that I've just created, separate from the previous storage that I had. It looks like it's partway through generated at the moment. Let's go through. We can have a check. If we go into our storage area, you can see it's expecting all these tables. If I go to metrics at the top here, this allows us to monitor it. Looks like the rest of these are queued for some reason, as opposed to running. Okay, so we're missing some of the data that we wanted there. Again, like I say, good old live demos. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to stop those two and restart them. And we'll see. If need be, I can go back to the ones I prepared yesterday and look at that. Stop those two. That will actually stop the on-prem task as well. You can see that's now showing as, well, you can't stop it because it's already stopped. I will restart that again. Hopefully that will pick up the other additional things. This is starting. Change processing is looking for stuff there. Okay, whilst that all just settles down, what I'll do is I'll show you a change being recognized in here in near real time. So what I'm going to quickly do is just log in to our on-prem Qlik Sense to demonstrate how quick this goes through. Okay, this is a new app. Okay, an amazing app that I'm creating, obviously. So if I click create here, we know that in the background that's going to create, you see already over on the left here, I don't know if you saw that, it's got some changes that it's picked up almost instantly. Those changes now being pushed through into the cloud. It's inserted something about app contents, app internals, app objects, and an app itself. So that's picked up instantly as that happens. I can do other things, like if I duplicate an app, very similarly. If I let me make that any smaller. We've got kind of some contents. This time we've got 3 things coming through: inserts and applies. We've got a lot of app objects in that one, 92 new app objects coming through. So those changes are being picked up really dynamically. Unfortunately for us, those are probably going to not push through until 35 minutes past into the cloud version. But that is how quick Replicate can pick up those changes. There's no reload schedule like you might be used to with Qlik Sense. It is monitoring that in the back end as it connects into the database and then replicates those stuff across, hence the name. Let's see, did we, let's see if our storage has worked this time. If not, we'll go back to the other one. So look at our metrics. No, they're sitting there as queued. Not quite sure what's going on there. That's fine. I will just revert to my previous ones. And I've set up, this is, again, we're back in the cloud here. So we created some demo app, some dummy apps to create some changes. I've got my 3 of my tables, my app objects, my apps, and my users loading here from our hybrid data delivery space. In this case, I'm going back to my old files just so that I know they're all there. I'm going to load my data through. And this allows us to see, trying to remember what cadence I had the other one refreshing on, because they're essentially refreshing the same data to 2 different sets of QEDs. We're going to have a look at that once we went. Let's have a look at the prep one. Set up to be hourly. Okay, never mind. What's that line in the background? Just going to double check what this one ends up set as. It's also gone back to hourly. Interesting. Okay. Yes, the joys of live demos. They come up with a question. This is only going to be a very simple app to load the QEDs in. I don't know if perhaps that had timed out behind the scenes because I had left it open for a little while. There we go. That's more like it. Okay. So this is now some data that's come from on-prem. It's gone to, I'm thinking that way, let me do it that way around. From on-prem, then it's gone into S3, then it's gone into Qlik Cloud Storage. and then it's come into Qlik Sense. Okay, and as this happens, it happens to be some on-prem Qlik Sense data. As you can see, this data, even though it's just reloaded, the last time there were some changes there was the 13th. So I think we're expecting there would be some changes that would come through in the next reload of that. It's always a shame when you can't share a part of it. So I can try and resolve that, but that's probably not the most interesting thing for you to see. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell, really. You select your data from on-prem into S3, into Qlik Cloud Storage, and then you can do what you like with it. And so there are these new concepts of spaces that are data spaces in the Qlik Sense cloud environment, if you've not seen those. Okay, so I'm pretty sure at one point they did show in this list here, which is why I went looking for them there, but it looks like now they've moved that, so you only really see them when you go into data services and you have these data spaces. I get to view all here. I get these spaces listed down here. Okay, so you can see there's various different ones, different things that are running at different places and time. So okay, yeah, it looks like that updated at 22 minutes past. Okay, so I wasn't lucky with the demo timing there. So yeah, yeah, I think you know, we're heading towards 1:30, so let's open up to questions. I know Neil, you've been keeping an eye on those and may have some that people have sent in, but type them in the chat. Raise your hand if you want, and we'll unmute you, and you can ask it in person if you want. And we'll take it from there. I can see Jonathan's just asked another one there. Does the replicate need an agent to be installed on each prem data source? No, it doesn't. That is one of its key things. It will need some configuration. Like for the Postgres connection here, we had to set it up that it would allow replication, like it's a configuration in the server settings, and we needed a user that had permissions to access the relevant objects that allowed it to do that. But I did not have to set up. There was no agent to install. It's just configuration. And for different data sources, you will find, if we search for what should we do, Qlik replicate Postgres. You will find in the help using PostgreSQL as a source. It'll have prerequisites, required permissions in here. So this help has lots of different things, because of course each different database system tracks its changes or allows access to its replication functionality, and so on. So various things there. The prerequisites here. That's not got much in it. That's a great example, isn't it? But yes, there's lots of information in there about how to work with it and certain things that may cause problems. So worth watching out for. But no, replicate is highly efficient. Very limited footprint. Obviously, you need an on-prem server to install it on, but from there, it can hook into other systems quite easily.
So if anybody wants to ask a question, you can unmute yourselves. As Alex said, I actually have got some that I got sent in from people who couldn't attend, unfortunately. One is, what are the deployment requirements?
Yeah, so basically you need a VM to install Replicate on at the moment, and Enterprise Manager. Those other two components sit on the same server. That's fine. That doesn't need lots of storage on itself, because mostly it's passing things through from source to target. There are obviously some minimum requirements and recommended operating systems that can run on Windows or Linux. Yeah, at the moment that is the full-featured Replicate and Enterprise Manager. We believe that if people are kind of pretty much purely wanting to leverage this kind of hybrid way of working, because that gives you the whole suite of kind of sources and targets, we believe they're going to release a cut down version that will be like Data Gateway or something like that, that is just about configuring that initial connection without all kind of the bells and whistles around it, to simplify that, and then you manage everything else from the cloud. So we'll see about that in the future. Okay.
I got asked a question. How is this any different, Neil, to Qlik Sense just connecting to the data source direct?
Why
do I need this?
Yeah, well, so there's quite a lot to say there, probably. Firstly, this is push. So it's, you install something on-prem and it pushes it to the cloud. So a lot of organizations are reluctant to open up holes in their firewall to allow a cloud system to come in and access data on-prem, even if that's IP address limited or whatever, or even with like a site VPN can be quite complicated to set up. So this is pushing it securely over HTTPS using secure API keys and so on to the cloud environment. So it's a push, not a pull. Whereas if you had Qlik Sense in the cloud, that would need kind of something else setting up there. Although you could, of course, have Qlik Sense on-prem. The other main advantage here is that it is constantly monitoring for changes. It's like the best incremental or delta load you could imagine, because it literally is looking at every line that's inserted in any table you're monitoring or deleted or updated, and it just moves those changes across. So even in the best will in the world, the most efficient, Qlik Sense incremental loads struggle to get to that level. And in here, you just kind of click a few buttons, set it up, and it's moving that across. And in this scenario now, it's creating those QVDs. So those QVDs updated every 15 minutes, at that kind of enterprise scale. And of course, Qlik have engineered that such that they can update those QVDs very efficiently. If they know the QVD format, they know what changes are coming in, and they can update those very, very rapidly.
Okay, thank you. So Christoph's asked a question in the chat, which to me strikes of a bit of app automation as well, but you might say better than me on that, Alex. It's got replication happens in near real time. However, to refresh the app, a scheduled task is still needed.
At the moment, that's the case. Yes, Christoph. The two are not connected. However, I can't imagine it's going to be long before you're able to pick that up. As Neil says, app automation. I don't think it's a big secret that's coming out next week. So that will be a big thing in Qlik Sense Cloud. Whether you'll be able to pick up an event from your replicate task to say that someone is. I'd say that a replication has happened, an update has happened. Obviously, there's some kind of things to consider there about, like, is it when the data source is updated at all, or is it a certain table and things like that. So yes, you do need to choose that, but you might, I'm sure there will be a way to connect the things together, but there isn't as at today. But if you're updating them every 15 minutes, you can pretty much set whatever schedule you like on your end user apps, and you're going to pick up the latest data either way, and so on. And yes, Andy's just reminded us. Sorry, you say it, Neil. That's fine. You can do the marketing piece.
I was going to say our next webinar after this one will be on app automation, which is part of what Alex was describing there. So keep an eye out for that one. We'll send over some information shortly. So one of the other questions I got asked ahead of it was, does this support anything other than Amazon S3? And I don't think it does it at this point?
So not at the moment, no. That was their first kind of, so Qlik Cloud is in AWS, so I think they had the most kind of access to that and so on. So that's just where they started. I think, like with a lot of these new features we're seeing coming out, it's version 1, and they're going to iterate quickly from there. We know they have plans to expand the offering for QDI in the cloud. Exactly what comes next, whether that will be different data storage providers. They do Qlik Sense in SaaS supports Azure storage, Google Cloud Storage, as well as S3 and others. So technically, I don't think it's going to be too much of a stretch to think they'll come soon. But S3 is obviously fairly commonplace for kind of bulk data storage anyway at the moment. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm amazed we haven't heard from Andy Chalk. I don't know whether you've nodded off, Andy, but he will normally have a question which I'll pass your way if you don't mind, Sharon. He will ask, is it free?
It's good value. Is that the correct sales answer?
Here we go. Andy
there we go. You've woken him up now.
So Sharon,
it's not. It's not free. It is, so you do need to buy kind of the replicate component of it. If you already have that, then this functionality, as long as you've got Qlik Sense SaaS, you can connect the two up together. So yes, there is a commercial conversation to be had there. It is priced based on the size of your data sources, at least roughly speaking. So that's kind of how to think about it. It's not per user, per month or anything like that. And it's not even by volume of data. It's about the size of the infrastructure you've got running your source systems, just to give you kind of a, how it scales. So if you've got a one-core server running a SQL database, which is pretty unusual, I would imagine, then it's, that's going to be the lowest, the lowest level that it's going to be at, and then obviously it's going to scale up from there, and so on. But it is worth considering, this is just one component. If you buy that, you get Replicate, which you can then use for other things as well, not just the hybrid data delivery. And also, depending on the package you go for, you may get Compose, which is the data warehouse automation stuff, or data lake automation. You may get Catalog as well, which is all about kind of that advanced cataloging of your business data and metadata and so on. So, it's not, you're not paying just for this one use case potentially. Although that may be possible in the future, we don't know.
Yeah, and the last question I got in advance was, trying to remember exactly who did it now. I can't remember who it was, but what's a realistic refresh rate?
That's
Depend on the data.
How long
exactly.
String?
Hence, I didn't ask it in advance.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine for most people, there's nothing wrong with going with that kind of minimum 15 minutes, because unless you're getting millions and millions of rows every 15 minutes, you're not going to start hitting any kind of bandwidth bottleneck. But equally, if you've got lots and lots of data sources you're synchronizing, and you don't want to be creating network issues, that I would say that's kind of use case, and so on. And I've set up one task here from one database. You can have many of those, so you could have some things that are refreshing once a day if that's all you need. Some stuff that's right down at that 15-minute increment, that you really need to be doing that intraday refreshes, and so on. So there's no kind of right answer to that. But at the moment, 15 minutes is the minimum. That's not the minimum for Replicate in general, just to be clear. And that is just for this use case around hybrid data delivery, pushing to the Qlik Cloud landing. That's the most they'll allow you to refresh. Replicate can just be set up to replicate the changes as soon as they happen, between source and target. So it can be used for things like disaster recovery and as well as backups, but also reporting and all those kind of use cases that you might have.
Thank you very much. Right, so I don't have any more questions unless anybody else wants to chip in with one or two.
Andy Chalk's going to try and come in with a better dad joke than you've made or something, Neil, maybe. I don't know.
I would think so, yeah.
So we'll let him finish typing. But yeah, please do type any questions or unmute yourself. Are there any specific load considerations for the source? No, really speaking, it is. So it will set itself up as if it's sort of another node in the cluster, if it's something like Postgres or SQL Server. So it's kind of, they're set up to very efficiently replicate that data across ways. There's no agent, so there's no additional kind of software that's running on there. Yes, if you're reading like the logs from the database table, there is that kind of small incremental query that's going on. But because it's only taking a snippet of data, the absolute minimum, it's super optimized. This may be a new product to some of you that are coming at this from the Qlik Sense and Qlik Data Analytics QDA side, but the technology underneath this that came from the Attunity acquisition has been around a long time. Hence the broad nature of the data sources and the great capabilities. So it has been fine-tuned over time. So they're very proud of how little extra load this puts on your data source. So it's really light touch. When you compare it with Qlik Sense going and grabbing it, and querying the database, possibly locking tables, all that kind of stuff, there's just none of those problems. There are some challenges because you can end up with transactions that are partway through uncommitted, and how do you handle those and so on. But again, the defaults will work for that, but there are also ways of kind of monitoring that through the system as well.
Great stuff. All right, Sharon, back to you. I think I can't see that there's any more. If anybody wants to look at this in any more detail, by the way, then please do get in touch and we can set up something appropriate.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So we just want to say a big thank you to everybody who has been participating in today's webinar and all the questions. We really do appreciate it. Our next webinar, as Neil said, is on app automation. we are going to be sending out some more information about it, but we are going to be putting that in the diary for the 4th of October as well. So please keep your eyes and ears peeled for emails about that. And if there are any other topics that you would like us to discuss specifically, do let us know, and we can make sure that we're putting the right content out for you to sort of consume as well. But yes, again, thank you very much.
I just wanted to jump in because
Yes.
the 15-minute increment has come round and the data has come through. So I might just quickly show that, since we can, for anyone that has stuck around, just to show you what that does look like. So this was the app as I reloaded it before, and I can now see when I come over to my data services area that both of them have updated now. So this is the one I was running at 12:35, so we can see our metrics on that refreshed whilst we're doing Q&A. Those are still queued for some reason, but if I look at the one I did yesterday for my storage, I come through to my metrics, I then get this window here that says the last batch of records relates to then. Throughput was 4 records, sorry, 107 records. So those are all the objects and apps and things like that. So now if I reload my app in here, we'll see that the apps go from 252. When we look at this modified date down here, we now got 254. So that's the 2 apps I created have been, the data for them is synchronized across. And you can see all these app objects down the bottom here. We've now got a whole load of app objects that were created today. So it does work. It's just I didn't quite get the timing right to show you that during the main bit of the webinar. So that's a little treat for those of you that stuck around. Yeah, as Sharon says, do get in touch if you want any more information.